Oh, a pretty dedicated bunch, come out of Wairoa.
Yeah, no, we've got more to come. Grey Power, Hastings and Districts, Marie Dunningham. Here we go. Good afternoon and welcome.
Which of these chairs do I get? I've got 3 chairs to choose from.
Yes.
Find the comfy ones. 10 minutes.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to be quick, hold it. Grey Power made a submission, and it was sent in, and what I've put in front of the councillors today are some additional words, and that is all I wish to speak to. So good afternoon, members of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, council staff, ladies and gentlemen of the public who have cared enough to come today to help our regional council make thoughtful decisions for us all. Remember, most people are petrified to come and speak like this, and I have to say I waited long enough to get myself worked up. It isn't easy. Therefore, if you had 95% agree on something in the submissions, I think you can rest assured that the populace is something akin to that figure. So when you make your decisions on the choices we have been asked to make submissions on, you might care to remember that. I might add that Grey Power's choice was option C. We omitted that in our submission mainly because our first choice was none of the above. So if you had 100 submitters, we will make that up now to 96% for option C. For many of us, the health of the Tukituki River remains a challenge of national importance. Our river has continued, under the care of this council, to decline. The original plan for the dam, the Ruataniwha Dam, was as much to keep the river healthy as to store water for the winter, and as an ordinary member of the public, I understood that to be the 2 main reasons for the dam. It now seems to be anything but. I visited the Tukituki River for the first time in 5 years, a couple of weekends ago. I went to the end of Tamata Road. You can now, at the moment, get down in one place only, which leads you to a steep bank to an uncrossable pool. All the paths seem to have disappeared, all the roads have been blocked off, and at my somewhat advanced years and a hip that isn't replaced, I was unable to walk too far to find access to the river. The road we found was overgrown with fennel, was littered with rubbish, and was a thoroughly unlovely dump, and we left in despair. And this is where my family and many of yours spent summers swimming and even drinking that water. So whatever you do as a council, our members' thoughts are for the river and the cost of rates. So those are the 2 motivating factors, the state of the river and the cost of rates. And for a regional council, we believe these and not business interests are our priority. Councillor Scott, you asked a question of some others talking about the river and the dam as what would happen in climate change. I suspect that if climate change is as bad as we think as I think it should be anyway, we are unlikely to have either the snowfall or the rainfall to maintain a river to put a dam on. And that would be scenario 1. Scenario 2 would be that we get all the promised tropical rainstorms and we have floods and we grow pineapples and rice. So I'm not sure that either of those have much effect on whether we build a dam or not. The reason why our members did submit is that some of our members, probably about half of them, are actually property owners, and property owners are ratepayers. And ratepayers tend to be a frugal lot who like to know where their money is going and why. So I think that's all I had to say on that. The other matters were that we did submit on managing and monitoring the land, and fit for purpose regional council. And we do ask, fit for what? And what are the high value activities that you get up to? Whatever is an all of government-based hosted infrastructure approach. We really would like to know. Thank you. That's it. And some of us ratepayers, oh yes, I had terrible trouble getting this submission to you. It took me a whole morning not to be able to send it by email, because I went into your website and it didn't work, so I went into your website another way and it didn't work, so I went into your website another way and I got what I wanted, and then my computer said I can't display this page. And then when I finally got it up, I said I had to become a registered submitter and with a password, etc., which I did. And then you guys sent me an email that said, hit this, and it will hit one of those strings of letters, and we'll get you into wherever you need to go. And when it did, it came up and said, we want you to start all over again, what's your name, and choose a password, and choose a blah, blah, blah. And by having spent 3 hours on this, I actually got in my car and contributed to climate change by driving all the way over here and handing you in a printed copy on paper. So, and I am not the only one of our members who says that they have had trouble getting in touch with the council. And my final bit is, we're not all computer savvy, and I am not that great myself. So, how will you cater for us if we want to pay our rates by cheque? Will our rates be waived? Thank you.
I won't endeavour to answer the last question, Mrs. Dunningham. Any questions? And you're right about the website. 1 or 2 days it was behaving.
Ghastly
was behaving
word.
poorly, and
Yes.
we've taken a stick to it and fixed it,
Yes.
apparently. But Councillor
Well,
Bevan.
your staff were extremely helpful, I have
Thanks
to
for
say.
your submission, Marie. You mentioned that Grey Power Hastings was not in favour of option A, B or C, but you didn't say what they were in favour of.
Yeah, I finally said that our choice of, our reluctant choice, if you want us to make a choice, would be C.
Yeah, but if that wasn't your preferred choice, what?
No, we didn't have a preferred choice. We didn't like any of them.
Right.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, and very sorry that you had an Orwellian experience trying to get through our system, but I'm really interested in, did you get 100% support from your Grey Power Hastings group? Or?
No, that's something that you would never get from any particular group. For instance, there's quite a big group of them who are not ratepayers and don't see themselves as ratepayers no matter how much you twist it around that their rent does pay for rates. They don't take an interest.
What kind of support did you have? I mean, just anti-global.
I have the full support of the committee, and I know that rates is something that we discuss regularly, and it's very, very high on Hawke's Bay, Hastings and National Grey Power list of priorities for matters that affect the older person quite deeply.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Barker.
Thank you for clarifying that. I was trying to figure out which you support, but you've clarified it's option C. Having said that you support option C and then in with the vast majority of people who have made submissions supporting option C, do you believe the council should follow the indication given by submitters and act accordingly? And what would be your view of the regional council if it decided to go against the clear express opinion of the majority of submitters?
Well, I've just pointed out that the submitters do represent a great many more people who do not have the courage to submit and certainly do not have the courage to come and speak to their submissions. So therefore, I think first off, you need to take the percentage of the majority of that option C is a very clear mandate that that is what the population wants, at least those who take some interest in matters that should concern them. I think we would be very disappointed if this council found it difficult to make a decision that is clearly mandated by at least your submitters.
Thank you. We're just about out of time. I had a question, but I'll stick to the rules myself. So thank you very much, Mrs. Dunningham, for clearing up the position of Grey Power. Much appreciated. So we'll be dealing with that tomorrow. Mr. Tim Gilbertson. It is the Mr. Tim Gilbertson.
Introduction and a half. Can I have a glass of water because it's very hot in here and it's very dry. Oh, thank you. Thanks.
10 minutes, Mr. Gilbertson.
Thank you. Well, as I said in my submission, councillors, this is a repeat of every submission I've made for the last X years and nothing new. The only thing I want to say is about the dam, and I said to you in my submission that I think you've stuffed up the PR on the dam.
We're not talking. Well, I know you put in your submission. We're actually not talking about the dam as
No,
such.
I'm talking about the PR.
Oh, the
approach to
PR
dam,
round,
which is
dam.
my submission.
Yeah, sure.
Was that
Okay.
your PR has been appalling, and that has led to the amount of opposition to the dam you've seen. And I just want to give you one example of that, which I think my submission is that you need to get off your get your PR a lot better, because there's so much misinformation, there's so many false facts, so much rubbish being talked about the dam. And it's completely skewed the debate, and I've been writing letters to the CHB Mail occasionally trying to correct some of that thing and actually doing your job for you. But I'll just give you one absolutely typical quote. This is from Bay Buzz, May, June 2015. I'm allowed to, this is additional information. And it's an article by the Honourable Peter Dunn, United Future Leader. And I actually rang his office when this was printed last year and said, you know, what's the story, can you explain this to me? Because he has written here, Hawke's Bay is a very good example of where central government thinks it knows best when it comes to regional development. And then he says, it decided it would go down really well in the province was a massive dam to boost irrigation. So I rang him up and I got one of his minions and I said, this is not true, this was not promoted by the government. This was from the regional council. Says, that's not true, it's actually completely wrong. This guy said, oh, well, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. But it was wrong, that is not a fact. That is completely untrue that this was promoted by central government. He then went on to say, the fact is that...
Can I just butt in here, which is unfortunate, but we're not here to talk about the dam. I understand your view about the...
I'm talking about the presentation of the dam. And
we're just talking about the variation of the long-term plan, simple as that. And I know you didn't present. Okay. I know you didn't present on that, and you've got some other good stuff around other things here to talk about.
Oh, okay.
But we get your point on the PR.
Well, you do? Oh, that's good. Okay. Well, everything else is in the submission. It's repeating what I said last time, so I'm open to questions.
Yeah, look, it's a fine line between what we're trying to find out and what people want to talk about, I suppose.
Okay, that's right. I'm happy with that. That's our answer.
Yeah, it is a hearing. It is a hearing after all. But Councillor Scott might have a question there.
A question on this part of the submission that you've made, and that's on the feral cats. You are aware, of course, that we're still waiting for the review of the policy statement on that which is held up, having a new pest management strategy.
No, the last time we were going to do some localised control in Waimarama, but the point I tried to make, and I asked an extra question, was that in Wellington, well, submission last year I said, why don't you do something about registering cats and dogs, and the answer I was given by your staff was that the statutory responsibility for that lies with central government, and local government authorities are powerless to do that. Now, Wellington, as I said in my submission, my further submission was that...
so we can get closer to a way forward on this. The review of the pest management strategy was put on the back burner until the government regulations came out, so it is due soon. But in the meantime, you're aware of the approach that is being taken through Cape to City on control of feral cats?
No, I'm not aware of that, but I'm aware of the fact that Wellington has passed bylaws that is restricting the number of cats, etc., which is a move to address the basic problem, and it seems to me that this council hasn't taken no steps to do that. I also asked under the Triennial Act whether you've been working with the other councils, because they do apparently have the power to do something, and the answer is no, you haven't done anything. So your review will come up when it comes up. We've been doing nothing for 20 or 30 years, or 10 or 15 years, so my submission is that you really need to do something rather than talk about it, and I don't see that your plan will come out with a cast iron solution, which is basically the only solution to me to get the problem at source is to register cats the same way as you do with dogs, and that will solve the problem because the country is not overrun with dogs basically because they're registered and controlled. So any other solution that you're proposing, as I say in my submission, these solutions you have proposed have been ineffective and wasteful, and therefore you're making no progress and you haven't for 10 years. So that's why I'm saying the submission I'm making is exactly the same submission I've made in my aunt, who I mentioned my submission made for 30 years as well. So it's all very well doing another plan and a policy and waiting for this, that and the other thing. But, you know, I've been waiting a long time for not much action. So that's exactly what I said in this submission. I've been saying that for the last 3 or 4 years, and various people have been saying it for 30 years.
Councillor Barker, then Councillor Pike.
I'm interested in this process because it gives the first opportunity once a year for councillors to hear directly from the public, and I believe that as a submitter you're entitled to express your mind. So my question to you is, what other things would you like to tell council? Now you've got 10 minutes to tell us what you think.
Nothing.
All right, it's okay.
Councillor Pike.
Hi Tim, I'm just trying to get clarification on the environmental flows, the extra environmental flows and the money for that. Where do you stand?
He hasn't
Are you
submitted
talking
on
about
that.
I don't think
The environmental flows. Have you
no,
not
I'm
submitted?
totally in favour of paying for the environment, paying for what's the option where you put the money into the, you secure the price.
We secure the price.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that what you're in favour of?
totally. I mean, it's just common sense. If someone offered me $100 for my land for the next 10 years, I'd be a mug not to take it, wouldn't I? And that goes back to my point, I'm not allowed to talk about your PR machine or failure. But I'm not allowed,
Can
not
talk
allowed
about
to
it,
talk
but
about
we're not here to talk about the dam, is all I'm saying.
I'm not talking about the dam,
No, I
Mr.
know
Chairman. I'm talking about the PR system used by the councils, which has a $400,000 budget to put its point across to the public of Hawke's Bay. But I'm not allowed to talk about that, so I won't say anything.
But I agree with you, you should be able to.
It's out of Skype, it's a hearing. Order. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Tim, I'm really pleased that you and I agree on something for a start, feral cats. How big an issue is it in your part of the world?
Well, the Regional Council 4 years ago had a guy staying in my sheriff's quarters who was trapping mustelids between the Patongata Bridge and the confluence of the Waipara and Tukituki rivers, and at the same time was doing cats, and he actually exceeded his brief a bit to do around my woolshed. He caught 3 mustelids and 58 cats within 100 metres of the Tukituki River in a 6 or 7k area. So that tells me that it's a massive problem, and this is why I get quite excited, because 30 years ago, when the Tamamu dump was still open, there were 30 wild cats at all times, and I went to Hugh Hamilton, the then mayor of CHB, way before I was a politician, and said, I'm paying rates to you guys for you to breed cats that infect my sheep with toxoplasmosis and cause abortion, so I'm paying you money to make me broke. And nothing's happened. That was 1981. And nothing happened. So I mean, here I am, how many years later? You can count, Mr. Chairman, can you tell me? How many years later? A lot. So here I am. I mean, it just seems absurd. And I go back to that possum example. You're doing exactly what in my submission says. You're going to kill, the last I heard your official position, you're going to kill a whole lot of cats at Waimarama. And what will happen? All the cats from Havelock and Ocean Beach will move in. And it's exactly what happened with possums at St Lawrence Station in 1983. Killed 2,000 possums. The possums from Mangarara moved to St Lawrence and Mangarara, and whoopee-doo, you've wasted X thousands of dollars and nothing's happened. And you're just, I don't know, Councillor Scott's waiting for your national policy statement. It's just beyond me. And I've been involved in this thing, as you know, these places. It seems so simple.
Can I just follow up on your Wellington example? Because I'm not sure it's a bylaw yet. I think they're consulting on it. I'm not sure exactly where it ends up. There's also a plan to limit so many cats per household, etc. How far do you think this program would have to go to be effective?
To be effective, you'd have to do exactly what you do with dogs, which is you have to register and pay for them. The market would then decide that people only have 1 or 2 cats and look after them. But the point I'm making is that I was told by your staff a year ago that you had no power, that local government had no power to do that. Now, I then read in the Dominion that they are making a bylaw, and my question was, If they have no power to do that, as I was told last year, surely you should ring up Wellington and tell them that they're breaking the law. If they do have the power, you should do something yourselves. Is that not logical, Mr. Chairman?
Very logical, Mr. Gilbertson. Councillor Scott.
Having been both a territorial authority mayor and a member of the Regional Council, you'll be familiar with the Local Government Act. You know that territorial authorities have the power to make bylaws, regional councils don't.
Then I go back to the Triennial Act, which you are by law required to consult and work with all local authorities to ensure the best possible service delivery at the best economic cost. If you're an environmental agency and your aim is to improve the environment, and the best or only way you can do that is to cooperate with the territorial authorities and pressurise them or persuade them to put in a bylaw that limits the number of cats, you are therefore solving the problem of obeying the Triennial Act and doing your duty as an environmental agency, which at this stage I'm saying you're definitely not doing, in the politest possible way. That's why 10 minutes, isn't it,
Quick
Mr. Chairman?
question from Councillor Barker, 30 seconds.
Just another arrow in the quiver, wouldn't it not be that we've got to address the problem of people releasing into the wild unwanted moggies? That people don't want them, so they just take them
Well,
up the highway and let them go. Couldn't we give a free euthanasia program for that?
No, because, I mean, how many unwanted dogs are let into the wild? They're not because people don't have surplus dogs, because every dog costs you $40, and if you don't have a, you don't have a dog, and if you do, the dog ranger comes to get you, except in Gisborne.
Thank
So
you.
the answer is no, Mr. Councillor, because it's simple. If it works for dogs, it'll work for cats, unless there's some total aberration. The system for dogs is effective. There are no wild dogs roaming the country eating my sheep. There are hundreds of cats infecting my sheep with toxoplasmosis.
Thank you.
58 at the last count. Thank you, councillors.
That's alarming, that number, but anyway. Thank you, Mr. Gilbertson, for your submission and your presentation. Thank you. Okay, Pauline Doyle and Ken Keys, Guardians of the Aquifer, which is number 98. And good afternoon and welcome.
Bigger than that,
Here we go.
bigger than that. So that we can get
So
25 and
we've got that up. Okay, so here's 10 minutes and welcome again. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much. My name is Ken Keys and Pauline Doyle from Guardians of the Aquifer. A few simple facts, not emotion, facts which are incontrovertible realities. We are destroying our planet. One major life-giving element that we are destroying, as we all know and should know, is water. That's not sentiment only, it's actually for real. You councillors are here to protect that element of Hawke's Bay's existence, the water. The water, the soil, the whole indivisible environment that we humans are merely part of. So the foundation principle in your aquifer management is quite simply to allow no risks at all to endanger those aquifers. It's not a matter of percentages, of that ridiculous and dangerous euphemism mitigation, of the spurious balancing of economics with environmentalism. We're talking of the very lifeblood of this region. 2 aquifers, mountains, rain, creeks, streams, rivers, above ground, underground, all linked, as every scientist, every geologist, every hydrologist, and every child knows, to link to each other and to the wonderful underground dams that make up the irreplaceable aquifers. Aquifers that have to be treasured and protected, as does their catchment area. 4 years after we urged action on this, no action has been taken, and the new cry is the wolf has pulled back, we have a breathing space, let's again do nothing. In fact, because there is a so-called breathing space, strategically now is the very time to get ourselves, I would have thought, we would have thought, into action. What is the blithe, the banal logic being used to advocate inaction? It is that the Regional Council can control totally the engineering technicalities, the casings, the fluids, etc., etc., in a violent earthquake-prone area where Mother Nature can destroy anything man-made in a few seconds. We have been told of a, quote, absence of sound evidence about the effects of drilling. What world are we living in? We have a thick file of the sound evidence about the dangers of fracking from around the world, and not just contamination. And do we wait for the ultimate sound evidence, for the equivalent of the Gulf of Mexico or Chernobyl or Fukushima, and then we say, oh yeah, we've stuffed up our water supply, we mustn't do it anymore. We've now got the sound evidence. We have been wrapped on our protesting knuckles by the usual naive fiction couched in the usual jargon. The prohibition is not strongly justified on a technical risk management basis. The key word being strongly, which by definition concedes there is a chance of contamination. There is a chance of disaster. Why, in God's name, would we take any chances? This is really just a general overview, and I will hand over to Pauline for some more detail. But please do remember that many, many lobbyists and submitters on this issue have put in years of intelligent and committed research and thought to the issue, far more qualified certainly than I am, and most people certainly around this table. Surely those people who make the decisions should avail of that knowledge that is in the community. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to hand you over to Pauline for some more details on the issue. Thank you.
I just want to apologise for the 5 pages that you've got in front of you. Just ignore those for the moment. I'll draw your attention to things as we go through. That is background, because I'm aware that most of you weren't here 4 years ago when we started this whole process of alerting the council to the dangers. When James Palmer started as our new strategic development manager in February, he said, yay, council needs to be ahead of the consents process. Well, in 2012, we were ahead of the consents process in alerting you to the need for a plan change. 200, roughly, submissions were made calling for a ban on fracking, supported by the District Health Board and Hawke's Bay Fruit Growers Association. And the Regional Council then acknowledged the risks and said that HBRC will undertake notifying the necessary plan changes. So it was in your long-term plan then in 2012. Then 2 years later, in 2014, $200,000 was allocated. Thank you. We thought that was to start the plan change process. No, it wasn't. It got buried in the Energy Futures project. We had one meeting on that and nothing since. We've been told there's no rush. And last week we were told we could perhaps wait another 5 years. That's 9 years we've been waiting. Oil companies have not gone away, they're just waiting in the wings. TAG Oil found excellent pressure at their exploratory bore at Waitangi 1 near Gisborne. And just a couple of months ago, they were given consent by this council for an exploratory bore in the southern part of Hawke's Bay at Porongaho. So number 2 on our oral submission that you've got there, how do we guarantee the security of our groundwater? Do we rely on central government? The National Policy Statement recommended by the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has stalled. So we left with the Ministry for Environment guidelines from back in March 2012. The Ministry acknowledged the risk of cross-contamination of oil, gas, fracking chemicals, etc. With our water. And regional councils are our regional council would be responsible for the sign-off for completion certificates for well casings. We know that well casings fail, particularly in seismically active areas. Ian Maxwell said, we don't have the expertise, we'd need to hire experts. And ratepayers, would we be held liable if well casings fail? So it's up to local government. Gisborne District Council, I've just heard, is in the process of prohibiting exploration near their town supply groundwater. Hastings District Council last year made it a prohibited activity, but that doesn't cover anywhere else in Hawke's Bay. I know that you're concerned about Wairoa, Fenton. The report that you commissioned from Rob on page 5 says that a limited scope regional plan change would be both necessary and appropriate if Hawke's Bay Regional Council wishes to give effect to the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's recommendations. And now we come to number 3 on page 2, which is about new information. When we made our submission last year, we weren't aware of this map here. Originally, the map we were talking about then showed just this part down here on the plains, on the flat area, as the aquifer. Now you see it goes right up into that oil permit exploration area up here. We were warned in 2013 at Hastings, organised by Hastings District Council, the Oil and Gas Symposium. We were warned by Dougal Gordon, your hydrologist, that 75 to 80% of the aquifer recharge for 100% of our town supply here in the Hiratonga Plains comes from up in that area. Well, there's the map to prove it. The previous map that we'd been given, well, we had lots of arguments. As for Ruataniwha aquifer, that has an exclusion zone over it apparently, but in a recent email that I received from James Palmer, we're told that there is no 100% guarantee that that would be honoured if we got the wrong sort of minister. There is a flaw, in our opinion, in the thinking that the current parts of the RRMP which talk about discretionary activity is adequate protection for our water supply. Discretionary activity basically just passes the buck to lay people and other affected parties to fight the fight through the Environment Court with the oil companies. And you'll be aware that under the RMA, Council cannot submit against an application it is processing on behalf of the oil company.
We're out of
So
time. I'm sorry. We've had our 10 minutes.
Okay, so that's our conclusion.
Okay, thank you.
The exclusion zone to prohibit fracking, to prohibit.
Thank
Well,
you
it's
very
written
much.
there anyway.
So we're out of time, sorry. 10 minutes. Everyone's had 10 minutes, and that's
Well,
how we've been running it.
hopefully what
So
we printed off
thank-
for you in those 5 pages
very
covers
helpful.
all your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your submission and your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Andy Pearce from